My twin brother, Elijah, came to visit me at the Washington State Psychiatric Center in Seattle. His face was a map of fresh bruises, one eye completely swollen shut, purple and black, lips split, knuckles raw and bleeding. His spirit looked crushed, like someone had taken the gentle man I knew and shattered him piece by piece. When he finally told me that my niece Chloe's husband wasn't just beating her anymore, but had started laying hands on my own brother and even on little 4-year-old Mia, something ancient and cold woke up inside me. I knew right then that I had to act. So I did the only thing I could think of. I swapped places with him and went to teach that animal Derek Harrison and his entire poisonous family a lesson they would live to regret for the rest of their miserable lives. My name is Xavier, and this is the full, true story of how I became the protector my family desperately needed. If you're watching this story, please subscribe to the channel, like button, and tell me in the comments where you're listening from. Elijah and I are identical twins, the kind of identical that fools even people who've known us our whole lives. Same height, same voice, same cowlick in the front, same tiny scar above the left eyebrow from when we were 7. But life dealt us completely opposite hands. He got the gentle soul, the calm lake. I got the storm. People always said I felt everything too deeply, 10 times more intensely than normal people. My happiness could make the sun feel dim, but my anger, well, my anger is what put me away for the last 12 years. When we were 18, 4 guys cornered Elijah behind the high school. I put all 4 of them in the hospital. The judge called me a danger to society and sentenced me to the state psychiatric facility. Maybe he was right. The second Elijah walked into the visiting room that day, I knew something was horribly wrong. He moved like every breath hurt, favoring his left side, ribs obviously cracked or broken. His left eye was a purple mess. Fresh cuts lined his knuckles, and when he tried to smile, his voice cracked like a scared child's. "You should see the other guys," he joked weakly, but there was no humor in it. I made him sit down and tell me everything. "It's Chloe's husband," he finally whispered. "Derek Harrison. He's been hitting her for years. Xavier, every day. And now he's started on little Mia. She's only 4. Yesterday, when I tried to stop him from going after the baby with his belt, he and his mother Barbara and his sister Brenda, they held me down while he beat me. That fire I had learned to cage for 12 long years roared back to life. But this time it wasn't wild or blind. This time it was ice cold and perfectly focused. 12 years of push-ups against the bars on my window. 12 years of therapy, books, meditation. Learning to harness the storm instead of letting it control me. The doctors thought they were rehabilitating me. They were wrong. They were forging me into something far deadlier. I walked to the barred window and stared out at the gray Seattle sky. "Elijah, look at me," I said quietly. "Really look." He lifted his head, and for a moment it was like staring into a mirror. Same face, same scars, same everything. Only I had grown hard and strong while he had been worn down. Understanding dawned in his one good eye. "Xavier, no, you can't. Those people are animals." I smiled, and there was no warmth in it. "Brother, I've been living with animals for 12 years. The difference is mine are locked in cages, and yours have been running free hurting my family. We're switching places. You'll stay here where it's safe and get real help for once. I'm going out there to protect Chloe and Mia the way I should have been doing all along." For the first time in years, hope flickered across his bruised face. Within an hour we had traded clothes, IDs, medical bracelets, everything. 20 minutes later I walked out the front doors of the facility as Elijah Miller, wearing his threadbare jacket that smelled of fear, cigarette smoke, and defeat. The security guard barely glanced at the discharge papers I handed him. The bus ride from Seattle down to Tacoma took nearly an hour, rolling through neighborhoods that got worse with every mile. Cracked sidewalks, boarded up windows, dead lawns, and despair hanging in the air like fog. Number 819 Elm Street was a sagging gray two-story house with peeling paint, a crooked mailbox, and a yard full of weeds and broken toys. The key turned with a grinding sound, and the second the door opened, the stench hit me. Unwashed dishes, stale beer, cigarette smoke, and something sour I didn't want to name. The living room was pure chaos. Clothes thrown everywhere. Empty bottles rolling underfoot. Television blaring some trash reality show no one was watching. From the kitchen came tiny, careful sounds. Someone trying desperately not to be noticed. Then I saw her. Little Mia sat curled up in the far corner behind a pile of dirty laundry, almost invisible, wearing a faded purple dress, 2 sizes too big for her tiny frame. Her dark curls hung in tangles around a face that should have been full of mischief and light. But instead, her huge brown eyes held the exhausted wariness of someone 3 times her age. When she saw me, she pressed herself smaller against the wall. "Grandpa," she whispered, voice trembling with fear. My heart broke into 1,000 pieces. This baby was terrified of her own grandfather. "Hey there, sweetheart," I said as softly as I could, crouching down and keeping my distance so I wouldn't scare her more. From the kitchen, a nervous voice called out, "Dad, is that you?" Chloe appeared in the doorway, and I barely recognized the vibrant girl I remembered from family photos. She was painfully thin, dark circles under her eyes, long sleeves in the middle of summer to hide the bruises, moving like every step expected a blow. When she realized it was me, the relief was only partial. Fear never fully left her body. "Oh, it's just you, Dad," she said quietly. But even that was tinged with dread. She bent to pick up a broken toy off the floor and winced hard, clutching her side. The house told their entire nightmare without words. Scuff marks on the walls at kicking height. Broken toys scattered like casualties. No family photos. No decorations. No joy. Just survival. Chloe went back to washing dishes like a mouse trying to go unnoticed, while Mia stayed frozen in her corner clutching a one-armed doll that had clearly seen better days. I was still taking it all in. Rage and grief fighting for space in my chest, when heavy, angry footsteps thundered down the hallway. Well, look what finally dragged its worthless self home, a venomous voice snarled. Barbara Harrison stood there like a vulture in a stained floral housecoat. Gray hair yanked back in a bun so tight it pulled her scowl even meaner. Small eyes full of hate sweeping the room. "There you are, you lazy piece of garbage," she spat. "Where the hell have you been all day? Sitting on your ass at some doctor's office while my son works his fingers to the bone keeping a roof over your ungrateful head." Chloe shrank smaller at the sink, and Mia curled into an even tighter ball. They'd heard this 1,000 times before. Look at this pigsty. Barbara kicked an empty beer can across the room. No wonder my Derek comes home stressed out of his mind. Brenda Harrison emerged from the back bedroom looking like a younger, meaner version of her mother, dragging her 6-year-old son Mason behind her. The boy already had the same entitled sneer, chocolate smeared around his mouth and cruelty in his eyes. "Uncle Elijah's back," Brenda announced with fake sweetness that didn't reach her eyes. "How nice." Mason's gaze immediately locked on Mia like a predator spotting easy prey. He marched straight over and snatched the one-armed doll from her hands. "This is stupid," he declared loudly. "Why do you play with broken baby toys? You're stupid too." "Give it back," Mia whispered, voice barely audible. "No. Finders keepers." Mason laughed and threw the doll hard against the wall. Then he shoved Mia so hard she fell over, hitting the floor with a small cry. Chloe dropped the dish towel and rushed in. "Mason," Please don't. But Barbara barked. Don't you dare touch my grandson. Brenda grabbed Chloe's arm hard enough to bruise and yanked her away. You don't tell my son what to do. Ever. Mason, emboldened, drew back his foot to kick the crying 4-year-old while she lay on the floor. That was the exact moment the last chain holding me back snapped. I crossed the room faster than any of them could track and caught Mason's ankle mid-kick with one hand. No, I said, deadly quiet. The boy shrieked and tried to pull away, but my grip might as well have been iron. You do not touch her. You do not take her things. You do not push her. You do not kick her. Ever again. Do you understand me? Mason's eyes went wide with shock and the first taste of real fear he'd probably ever felt. Let go of him right now, Barbara charged over like a raging bull. I released the boy and rose to my full height. Barbara actually had to crane her neck to look up at me, and whatever she saw in my eyes made her take 2 stumbling steps backward. Your grandson is going to learn manners, starting today, I told her, voice calm but carrying 12 years of controlled violence. And things around here are going to change. Starting right now. Brenda scooped up Mason and practically ran down the hallway, Barbara following fast, whispering furiously. A door slammed and locked. Chloe stared up at me from the floor, where she still held a trembling Mia. Dad, what's gotten into you? You've never stood up to them before, not once. I knelt beside them both and gently touched Mia's hair for the first time. Maybe it's time I finally did, I said softly. The house stayed in uneasy, unnatural silence for the rest of the evening. But I knew this was only the calm before the real storm arrived. I'd been lying awake on the sagging, moth-eaten couch in the living room, every muscle coiled and ready, listening to Chloe and Mia's quiet breathing from the back bedroom, when the roar of a motorcycle finally shattered the midnight silence like a chainsaw. The engine sputtered, coughed, and died with a metallic crash, probably the bike falling over again. Heavy, drunken footsteps stumbled up the front walk, accompanied by a string of slurred curses that could strip paint. Goddamn piece of junk bike. Lost again. Those cards were rigged. The front door exploded inward with a bang that shook the whole house. Derek Harrison filled the doorway like a nightmare in human form. 6'2" of muscle gone soft from beer. Wearing a grease-stained work shirt and jeans that reeked of bar smoke and cheap whiskey. His face was flushed red with alcohol. Small, piggy eyes scanning the room with predatory meanness. Chloe, he bellowed loud enough to wake half the neighborhood. Where the hell are you? Get me water. Now. From the back bedroom came frantic whispering and Mia's frightened whimper. She'd woken up terrified again. When no one appeared fast enough, Derek kicked over a chair, sending it crashing into the wall. And what's this old bastard still doing sleeping on my couch? His drunk gaze locked on me with pure contempt. Get up, old man, he snarled, weaving on his feet. You want to live in my house? You follow my rules. Rule 1. When I come home, you disappear. I stood up slowly, deliberately, rolling my shoulders. At full height, I was only an inch shorter than him, but 12 years of prison iron had carved me into something much harder than he'd ever been. Your house, I asked quietly. Pretty sure Chloe pays the rent here. Derek? His face twisted purple with rage. Did you just talk back to me? He took a stumbling step forward and threw a wild, drunken slap aimed at my face. I caught his wrist mid-swing like catching a softball tossed by a child. What the? He started, eyes going wide with shock. He tried to yank free, but it was like pulling against a steel vise. I squeezed just enough to make my point perfectly clear. We need to talk about some new rules. Derek, let go of me. You crazy old... I caught his other wrist before he could swing again. Now I had him completely helpless, swaying like a scarecrow in a hurricane. Rule number 1, I said calmly, applying pressure until I felt the bones shift. You never hit Chloe again. Crack. The sound of his wrist breaking was sharp and clean, like snapping a thick branch. Derek screamed loud enough to shatter glass. Rule number 2, I continued as if nothing had happened. You never, ever touch Mia. My fist drove straight into his solar plexus with perfect precision. All the air exploded from his lungs. His eyes rolled back, and he collapsed to the floor like a puppet with its strings cut. The next morning, 2 Tacoma police officers stood on the front porch, red and blue lights painting the rundown street. The older sergeant introduced himself as Officer Ramirez. His younger partner kept one hand resting near his weapon. They had received a complaint of assault and needed to speak to Elijah Miller. I invited them in. Chloe emerged from the bedroom clutching her robe, Mia peeking out fearfully from behind her legs. Derek sat slumped at the kitchen table, cradling his splinted wrist, pale and sweating, trying to play the victim. There he is, Officer Derek pointed with his good hand. That crazy old man attacked me last night for no reason, broke my wrist. I want him arrested right now. Officer Ramirez looked between us. Sir, can you tell us what happened? I came home from a long day at work. Derek whined, and he just went insane, grabbed me, twisted my arm. I think he's having some kind of mental episode. The younger officer examined the injury. This is a serious break. Mr. Miller. What's your side of the story? I opened the kitchen drawer where Chloe had kept every piece of evidence for years. Medical reports, photos, X-rays, doctor's notes, all documenting 3 years of systematic abuse. Officers, before we go any further, you need to see these. I spread everything across the table. Photos of Chloe's face so swollen her eyes were slits. X-rays showing cracked ribs from falling down stairs multiple times. Notes describing injuries consistent with domestic violence. And fresh photos of Elijah's beating from just 2 days ago when he tried to protect Mia. Officer Ramirez picked up one particularly brutal photo and went very still. Jesus Christ, he muttered. Multiple broken bones over years, all explained as accidents. He looked at Derek with cold contempt. Chloe stepped forward, voice shaking but clear for the first time. Everything in those files is true. Officers, he hits me almost every day. Yesterday he beat my father when Dad tried to stop him from hitting my daughter. The officers exchanged a long look. Mr. Harrison, Officer Ramirez said coldly. Based on this mountain of evidence showing a clear pattern of abuse going back years, we could arrest you right now for felony domestic violence. The only reason we're not is because the victims haven't pressed charges yet. But my wrist, Derek protested weakly. You assaulted an elderly man in his own home after years of terrorizing his daughter. The younger officer cut in. Consider yourself lucky he only broke your wrist. This is your one and only warning. If we get called back here, you're going away for a long time. They left Derek sitting there holding his broken wrist and staring at the proof that his lies had finally caught up with him. That evening, I could hear Barbara and Brenda whispering frantically in the kitchen, plotting their next move like the cowards they were. By dinner time, they had apparently decided on a new strategy. Barbara emerged from her room with a fake, cheerful smile that made my skin crawl. Elijah, dear, why don't you join us for dinner tonight? I made your favorite beef stew, with extra special seasoning just for you. Chloe looked up from feeding Mia with pure shock. In all the years she'd lived under this roof, Barbara had never once invited her father to eat with the family. That's very kind of you, Barbara, I replied carefully, taking a seat at the battered kitchen table. The bowl she placed in front of me smelled delicious, rich and savory. But the eager, almost hungry way she watched me lift the spoon set off every alarm bell in my head. "Go on. Try it," she urged, practically bouncing in her seat. I put extra love in it. I brought the spoon to my lips, then suddenly jerked my elbow as if startled by a loud noise from outside. The entire bowl went flying, hot stew splashing across the floor in a steaming mess. "Oh no, I'm so sorry, Barbara." "How clumsy of me," I exclaimed, jumping up. Her face went through disappointment, fury, then forced sweetness so fast it would have been funny if it wasn't so obvious. "Oh, it's fine. Accidents happen," she said through clenched teeth. But I caught the poisonous look that passed between her and Brenda. They had been counting on that stew doing something permanent. "I'll just make myself a sandwich. Don't trouble yourself making another batch," I said calmly, cleaning up the mess. The rest of the evening passed in thick, tense silence. Around 10 o'clock, I announced I was exhausted and settled down on the living room couch, pulling a thin, moth-eaten blanket over me. Within minutes, my breathing was deep and even, every appearance of a man dead asleep. But I wasn't sleeping. Every sense was razor-sharp, waiting. Just after 1 in the morning, I heard the soft creak of floorboards in the hallway. Someone was moving through the house, trying to be quiet. The footsteps paused outside the living room, then came closer. Through barely cracked eyelids, I saw Derek's silhouette against the dim hallway light. Despite his broken wrist now in a splint, he carried a thick coil of rope in his good hand, face set in grim, drunken determination. He crept closer to the couch, raised the rope, and reached for my shoulder to flip me over and bind me while I slept. The second his fingers brushed my shirt, I exploded into motion. My hand shot out and clamped around his throat like a steel trap before he could even gasp. His eyes bulged in shock and terror as I sat up slowly, my grip cutting off his air completely, going somewhere. "Derek," I whispered. He tried to struggle, tried to bring the rope up, but 12 years of prison conditioning had given me strength he couldn't hope to match, especially one-handed. Within seconds, his eyes rolled back, and he went limp. It took me less than 5 minutes to drag his unconscious body into the master bedroom and secure him tightly to the heavy iron bed frame with his own rope. Wrists and ankles bound, pillowcase gags stuffed in his mouth so he couldn't warn anyone when he woke up. Then came the fun part. I slipped out the bedroom's back door into the small yard, circled quietly around the house in the dark, and positioned myself outside Barbara and Brenda's bedroom window. Taking a deep breath, I started pounding on the side of the house with my fists and screaming at the top of my lungs. "Help Barbara, Brenda, he's gone crazy, he's killing me, help me, please." I threw in some extremely convincing groans and the sound of furniture crashing for good measure. "He's going to kill me, somebody help." Within seconds, I heard panicked footsteps and doors slamming open inside. Barbara burst into the master bedroom first, clutching a heavy cast-iron skillet like a club, face twisted with savage, gleeful hate. Right behind her charged Brenda, swinging a metal baseball bat with both hands, eyes shining with years of stored cruelty finally unleashed. "Where is he?" Barbara hissed, squinting into the pitch-black room. "Where's that old bastard?" The only light was a thin sliver from the hallway, enough to make out the silhouette of a grown man tied spread-eagle down to the bed, struggling desperately against the ropes, muffled screams coming from behind the gag. "There," Brenda pointed excitedly. "He's trying to get loose." What they couldn't see in the darkness was me crouched silently in the far corner with my phone recording in night vision mode. And what they also couldn't see was that the person tied to the bed and fighting for his life wasn't me at all. It was Derek. "This is for breaking my baby's wrist," Barbara screamed, raising the skillet high and bringing it down with all her strength across what she thought was my ribs. The muffled howl that came from the bed should have made them pause, but they were too lost in bloodlust to notice it sounded wrong. "And this is for embarrassing our family in front of the cops," Brenda shrieked, swinging the bat like she was going for a home run, connecting hard with Derek's already injured arm. More desperate. Muffled screaming and frantic struggling against the ropes. "Hit him harder. Mom, make him pay for thinking he could stand up to us." Barbara was panting with effort now, bringing the skillet down again and again on her own son's body. Brenda joined in with the bat, raining blow after blow, lost in a frenzy. "You think you're tough now, old man? Not so tough when you're tied up and can't fight back, are you?" The beating went on for nearly 3 full minutes, both women sweating and grunting with effort as they took turns brutalizing the helpless figure on the bed. Finally, Barbara stepped back, wiping sweat from her forehead with the back of her hand. "I think he's learned his lesson," she panted. "Should we untie him now?" Brenda asked, still gripping the bat tightly. "Not yet," Barbara sneered. "Let him lay there and think about what happens when he crosses the Harrison family." That's when I stood up slowly and flipped on the harsh overhead light. The sudden brightness made both women squint and shield their eyes. When their vision cleared, they found themselves staring at a nightmare made real. Derek lay tied to the bed, face a mask of blood and swelling bruises, his freshly broken wrist now bent at a sickening angle, chest heaving in shallow, panicked breaths. His eyes above the gag were wide with agony and betrayal as he stared at his own mother and sister. The cast-iron skillet slipped from Barbara's hand and clattered to the floor. Brenda's mouth opened in a perfect O of horror, the bat falling from suddenly numb fingers. "Surprise," I said calmly from the corner, holding up my phone with the bright red recording light still glowing. "Say hello to the evidence. Ladies." "Oh my God," Barbara whispered, staring at her unconscious, bloody son. "Oh my God. What have we done, what you've done?" I corrected coldly. "Is commit aggravated assault with deadly weapons. On camera, with crystal clear audio of you admitting it was revenge for the police visit yesterday." Brenda started shaking so hard she could barely stand. We thought, you said Derek was beating me." I finished for her. "You heard what you wanted to hear and assumed I was the one tied up. That assumption just bought you both about 10 to 15 years in prison." Barbara fell to her knees beside the bed, reaching out with trembling hands. "Baby, I'm so sorry. I didn't know it was you." "Don't touch him," I snapped. "You've done quite enough." I held up the phone again so they could clearly see the recording still going. "Here's what's going to happen now. I'm calling 911. You're both going to jail, and this video is going to make absolutely sure you stay there for a very, very long time." Both women were openly sobbing now, the full horror of what they'd done finally crashing down on them. I dialed 911 and reported a serious assault in progress. Within minutes, the night exploded with sirens. Red and blue lights painted the entire street as 2 patrol cars and an ambulance screeched to a halt outside. Officer Ramirez was first through the door again, hand on his weapon, until he saw me standing calmly in the living room. "Mr. Miller, what's the situation?" I held up my phone. "The situation, officer, is that I have video evidence of aggravated assault with deadly weapons. Clear motive, clear audio, everything." I led them to the bedroom where Barbara and Brenda sat huddled in the corner like broken dolls, and Derek lay unconscious and critically injured on the bed. "Jesus Christ," one of the paramedics muttered, rushing to Derek's side. This guy's in bad shape. Multiple contusions, possible internal bleeding, shattered wrist, at least 4 broken ribs. Detective Ramirez looked at the blood-stained skillet and bat on the floor, then at the 2 weeping women. Ladies, you're under arrest for aggravated assault. And frankly, this looks like attempted murder. But we thought, Barbara started. Ma'am, I don't care what you thought. Ramirez cut her off. You beat a man nearly to death with weapons while he was tied to a bed. Cuffs were slapped on. Rights were read. And Barbara and Brenda were let out in tears while paramedics worked frantically to stabilize Derek for transport. The video I handed over was perfect. High definition, night vision, clear audio of every word, every blow, every admission of revenge. Detective Ramirez watched it all the way through, face growing darker with every second. This is some of the clearest evidence I've ever seen. These 2 are going away for a long, long time. As they wheeled Derek out on a stretcher, Barbara reached out desperately. Derek, baby, I'm so sorry. Save it for your trial, Officer Ramirez told her, guiding her into the patrol car. An hour later, the house was finally quiet, empty except for me, Chloe, Mia, and one very confused and scared 6-year-old boy. Mason stood in the middle of the destroyed living room, staring at the bloodstains and overturned furniture, trying to understand why his entire world had just collapsed. His mother and grandmother were gone. His uncle was in the hospital fighting for his life, and the weak old man he'd bullied for years was suddenly the one in charge. Where's my mom? He asked in a tiny, trembling voice. Your mom and grandma did something very bad tonight. Mason, I explained, crouching down to his level. They hurt someone very badly, so the police had to take them away. They might be gone for a long time. His lower lip started quivering, and for the first time I saw past the bratty behavior to the scared little kid underneath. Am I in trouble too? He whispered. That depends. I said seriously. Do you remember how you've been treating Mia? He nodded, looking ashamed for the first time. And do you remember what I told you about how real knights are supposed to behave? Another small nod. Well, Mason, here's the thing. Your mom and grandma are going to be away for quite a while. That means you're going to be staying here with us now. And in this house, we have new rules. I walked over to where Mia peeked out from behind Chloe's legs and formally bowed. Princess Mia, I hereby name you queen of this house. Then I turned back to Mason. And you, young man, are now Sir Mason, sworn knight and protector of Queen Mia. Your job is to make sure she's always safe, always happy, and always has the best of everything. Can you do that, Sir Mason? He looked at Mia, who watched him with cautious, hopeful eyes, then back at me. For a 6-year-old boy, the idea of being a real knight was clearly magical. Yes, he said quietly. I can do that. 7 days later, Derek limped through the front door on crutches, arm in a heavy cast, ribs wrapped, fresh surgical scars from repairing internal bleeding caused by his own mother's skillet. Behind him shuffled Barbara and Brenda, looking 20 years older after a week in county jail, faces hollow, eyes defeated. Charges had been dropped only because Derek refused to testify against his mother and sister, the only shred of family loyalty he had left. Well, the gang's all here, I said from my seat at the kitchen table where I'd been helping Mia color a picture of a castle. Derek couldn't even meet my eyes. The irony of needing surgery because of the same kind of abuse he'd inflicted for years wasn't lost on anyone. We're back, he mumbled to the floor. The charges were dropped when I wouldn't press them. How generous, I replied. standing up slowly. But before anyone gets comfortable, we need to settle accounts once and for all. I walked to the counter and picked up a thick folder I'd prepared over the week. 7 years Chloe paid every bill in this house while you all freeloaded. 7 years of medical bills from Derek's fists. 7 years of therapy little Mia is going to need for the rest of her life because of what she's seen. Pain, suffering, emotional distress. The works. I slid a single sheet of paper across the table. Total comes to $500,000. That's what the Harrison family owes the Miller family. Derek's jaw dropped. 500,000. You're insane. We don't have that kind of money. Then you'll sell everything you own. Take out loans. Liquidate assets. Whatever it takes. Because if you don't... I held up my phone showing the assault video already backed up to multiple secure cloud accounts. This goes viral tomorrow. Full names. Full faces. Full audio confession. Good luck ever getting a job or renting an apartment again. The room went dead silent except for the scratch of Mia's crayons. There's one more thing, I continued. Chloe is divorcing you. Derek. Today. The papers are already filed and waiting for your signature. Chloe stepped out of the bedroom dressed in clean, bright clothes, hair done, head held high for the first time in years, small suitcase in hand. I'm taking Mia and moving in with my real father, she announced, voice strong and steady. The front door opened one final time, and Elijah walked in looking healthier than I'd seen him in over a decade. Face filled out, eyes bright, standing tall. Hello, everyone, he said with a warm smile. The doctors say I've made a remarkable recovery. Amazing what a week of actual peace, good food, and real therapy can do for a man. The Harrison family stared in stunned horror from Elijah to me and back again, finally understanding the full scope of what had happened. You see, I explained calmly, while you were all busy destroying each other, my brother got the help he actually needed for the first time in years, and I delivered the justice our family deserved. Elijah walked over and put his arm around Chloe. Come on, sweetheart. Let's go home to a house full of love for once. As we gathered our things, I turned back to the 3 broken people still sitting at that kitchen table. For 7 long years you made my family's life a living hell, because you thought you could. Because you thought we were weak and broken, and would never fight back. You hurt my niece. You hurt my brother. You hurt a 4-year-old baby. But here's what you never understood about family. When you hurt one of us, you hurt all of us. And when you threaten our children, you wake up something ancient and unstoppable. I picked up Mia, who wrapped her arms around my neck without fear for the first time. Sometimes the people you think are the weakest are just waiting for the right moment to show you exactly how strong they really are. We walked out of that house and never looked back. Chloe got her divorce and every penny we demanded. Mia got the safe, happy childhood she was always meant to have. Elijah and I got our family whole again. And me, 12 years in that hospital didn't break me. It forged me into a weapon my family needed exactly when they needed it most. But please, learn from my story. Don't wait until someone has to become the monster to stop the monsters. Stand up sooner. Speak louder. Protect the gentle ones before it ever gets this far. Because sometimes love has to look like fury for a little while. But God help me. I wish with all my soul I'd found a gentler way. If this true story touched your heart, share it with someone who needs to remember that protectors still exist, that family is worth fighting for, and that even the quietest, most broken among us can find strength when it's needed most. Drop a comment about the person who stood up for you when you couldn't stand up for yourself. And may your family never need a shield quite like the one I became. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments.